My friend and I back in high school used to have this joke every Thursday where we'd be like, hey dude, it's Thursday. And the other would be like, don't you mean? And then we both go, Thursday! Thor. So Thor is the fourth movie in what was now really starting to look like a Marvel Cinematic Universe. This was actually the first movie, at least for me, where you start to get a sense of, okay, this is a universe constructed of many different characters. We've had Iron Man, we have the Hulk, and now we have Thor. And this is Marvel's take on the fantasy genre. Thor is the god of thunder from the realm of Asgard, played by Chris Hemsworth. And yeah, this is pretty much the role that put Chris Hemsworth on the map. And Thor is next in line for the throne to be the king of Asgard, but the guy is he's there. You know what? There's no way going around it. He's a dick. He's self-centered, he's full of himself, and in that, he's got a jealous brother Loki, who we will get to later. But the All-Father Odin, played by Anthony Hopkins, is like, you know what, Thor, you're too much of a dick, you're not ready to take the throne yet, I cast you out of Asgard. He strips him of his powers, he banishes him out of Asgard down to Earth, and now he has to prove his worth. Now, I really like the character of these Thor movies and the world that they have created. I really like seeing Asgard because it really does look like the original drawings that Jack Kirby drew back in the 60s. It's really cool how they just translated that to the big screen so well. And the characters, you have the Warriors 3, and you have Sif, played by Jamie Alexander. They're Thor's friends, you know, they're his crew, and they're a fun bunch, but I wish they were developed a little more as characters. I kind of want to see like a one-shot with those guys, you know, like a short film, just about those characters. I think that'd be really cool to watch. And Heimdall, played by Idris Elba. He's not in the movie much, but he's a badass. That scene where he's frozen in ice, but Thor's calling out to him like, Heimdall, we need you now, and Heimdall's like, Rah! He just breaks out of the ice. You're like, oh, that's not a guy you want to mess with. And the Earth characters, when Thor's banished down to Earth, he meets this crew of scientists. You got Jane Foster, Eric Selvig, and Darcy Lewis. Jane played here by Natalie Portman, and that's never a bad thing. And you know what? They're a fun bunch too. They are the comic relief of the entire movie. The dialogue is really funny because they're like, alright, great, we're stuck with this guy who's speaking all like thee and thou and hammer and all that stuff. What do we do with this guy? I like that whole fish out of water situation. Plus it balances out how heavy some of the stuff in the other realm is. You know, like Loki finding out his true heritage and taking over the throne of Asgard. Tom Hiddleston as Loki is one of those roles where if he's in a scene and the scene ends, you're like, aw man, Loki's gone. At this point, everybody loves Loki, and when you first meet him in this movie, he's actually not a bad guy. I mean, yeah, he's always been jealous of Thor, but you can tell he has good intentions. But when Loki finds out he's actually the son of a frost giant and that Odin's been lying to him his whole life, yeah, I wouldn't take that well. You gotta admit, that's pretty messed up. Now, in a fantasy comic book movie like this, you're gonna be like, alright, the action in this movie is gonna be great. And it is. Thor really knows how to throw down in this movie, even when he doesn't have his powers. The scene where he's at the S.H.I.E.L.D. base and he's just beating the shit out of all these S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, that's some shit right there. And that's another thing, there is S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie, and that's another thing that makes you go, oh my god, this is one interconnected universe. Namely Agent Coulson, who you recognize from the Iron Man movies. I remember when I saw him for the first time in this movie, I was like, oh my god, wait, that's the guy from the Iron Man movies. I mean, how cool is that? You also get a glimpse, a tease of Hawkeye. You know when Thor's trying to lift the hammer from the crater and the guy with the bow and arrow is like, you want me to take him out? Coulson's like, nope, not yet. I didn't know that was Hawkeye at first, but watching the movie now, you're like, wow, yeah, that's really cool. It was really neat that you got to see S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie. But the main thing that this movie really all comes down to is the relationship between Thor and Loki. Because when Loki actually turns to the dark side, he's like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm gonna destroy the planet I'm originally from. And Thor learns his lesson down on Earth. He gets his powers back. He goes back up to Asgard to deal with his brother. That's always a good story, you know, sibling rivalry, tragic stuff. It was done really well, and you gotta give all sorts of props to the director, Kenneth Branagh, who was a really good choice for this movie. In fact, I kinda wish he had stayed on to direct the rest of the Thor movies. But nevertheless, Thor is one of my favorite movies of 2011. It was a great setup movie for what was yet to come. The score was really good too. Patrick Doyle did the score for this movie, and it's really epic. It's another one of the most underrated scores in the Marvel Cinematic Universe next to the first Iron Man. And the post-credit scene in this movie is really cool. The post-credit scene in Thor introduces us to the concept of the Infinity Stones, because we get to see the Tesseract for the first time. Obviously, we don't know it yet. We don't know what this thing is. The only thing we know about it is that it is power, and possibly unlimited power. It's a Marvel mystery, one that will be solved in the later movies to come. As for this movie though, it is one of my favorite movies in Phase 1. The characters are great, the action, the dialogue, the score, the visuals. Not bad for the most out there concept of Phase 1. So Thor, have you seen it? Have you watched it recently? How does it rank among all the Marvel movies for you? I really want to know, so whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.